Hello and welcome to another episode of Baked Beans and Butterflies, where today we're sharing with you our personal and lived experiences of what it was like to go through the introductions, which was quite tough.
Yeah, so it was 2020. We had just been approved to adopt our children.
Hmm.
And so then we sat down and started drawing up together with the family finder and our social worker and their social worker the introduction plan, which was over about 3 weeks. And this is probably a bit longer than 3 weeks. So we had to get that right. And we started off with we did our welcome book for the children.
Hmm.
We did them a little video,
Hmm.
bought them bears, but we didn't buy them bears. They were the bears that we'd got from our holiday,
Hashtag celebrity cruises.
and so we'd given that over.
Hmm.
But I remember that 3 week plan just felt odd because we had to start with some virtual introductions, didn't we?
That was the most unnatural thing. It's like for was it 30 minutes? It was planned 30 minutes or something like
I
that.
think it was an hour.
It was long, and basically what we was expected to do is keep two children
We were 3 and 5.
meeting us for the first time entertained on a Zoom video call.
Yeah, which was not easy, but
No.
we did like treasure hunts around the house over Zoom, didn't
Mm.
we? And they were quite engaged and they were quite chatty.
And I think if you're adopting now, it's a lot easier. Obviously, bearing in mind for us, it was pandemic, so things were very, very different. I don't think you're expected to do virtual introductions or anything like that anymore. I think it is now all gone back to face. At least I hope it has anyway.
Yeah, and other than meeting the children at the activity day, we hadn't
Mm.
spent, and it'd been like 6 months, I think, roughly between
Mm.
when we met them and the introduction. And I remember our first drive because they were 2 hours away. So that had to be built in the plan in terms of us driving there and driving back, etc. But I remember our first was at the park, very close to the foster carers, and we walked up, and they walked towards us.
Well, they came running, and then because we was again pandemic rules was in place, we was told do not hug the children and do not touch the children. Again, if you're looking to adopt and you're trying to build a rapport with these children, being told don't touch them was quite challenging. But I remember our kids come running to us, and then they stopped, and then I think it felt like 10 minutes, but it was probably about 30 seconds. We just stood there and looked at each other as if to go, well, what do we do now?
Yeah, and then we did go into the park and we played with them in the park. And I think we very quickly formed a bubble
Mm.
with the foster carers and that family. But so the first day was meeting in the park
But the important thing of that meeting is we took a photo, and within
mm,
that photo was the foster carers and
and us and the kids.
and us and the kids, and that went on to what we now have as a family wall. So the kids had a memory of the first time we actually met, and we included obviously the foster carers. So yeah, that was very important. That went on our family wall, and we had a pillow made of
Mm,
just the four of us, didn't we, with our picture on?
yeah. And so we spent quite a lot of time in the foster carer's house doing stuff. And then I remember the first time we took them out. We took them for a little walk and it was peeing down with rain.
Yes.
Green crocodile coat and pink coat
Mhm.
for the kids. And then and then I remember that was just wasn't a long walk, but it was weird, wasn't it, being on our own for the first time with them?
It was, yeah, it was quite frightening. But the other things, well, in between the introductions, when we was at the foster carer's house, our children's social worker from the county that they was from would do home visits. So whenever they would turn up, we was all sticking face masks on and pretending we were social distancing. And then one day our son turned around and said, why are you wearing a face mask? You haven't and it was just like the
Because we had to be getting into like bathing them and dressing them. I remember the first meal I cooked them. So the foster carers went out and we cooked in their kitchen. And I did the tuna mayonnaise pasta, which I feel like I've cooked a billion times since then. But we did that, and I remember the first place we took them for lunch when we took them out one day.
Was that the petting zoo?
Yeah, no, we went to
The
We went to
Harvester.
the Harvester, didn't we?
Hashtag Harvester.
And yeah, and they loved the salad bar.
The yes.
But it was also our daughter's birthday that week, wasn't it? That first week, and so that was weird because we couldn't get much or buy much, and
we ordered the kids' favourite. Hoo hoo. There's your clue. Hashtag Domino's.
Yeah. So we gradually did more and more in terms of looking after them at the foster carers, and then they started coming to our house.
Do you remember when we went to the petting zoo? Our daughter had a lovely white T-shirt on. Never forget it. And she, because obviously when she was young, she didn't have the experience of touching or holding food, and she had tomatoes, didn't she? And we took her back to the foster carer, which with a lovely white shirt that was no longer white shirt, and it was covered in tomato seeds, tomato juice, and everything. And at the time, we was like,
and 5 years later, she probably does the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then they started coming to our house. But each time that we'd visited, we'd started bringing stuff back.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we didn't think about was, so we'd put loads of stuff in the bedroom. Well, not loads, but we put stuff in the bedroom. But then there was more stuff because there was their stuff that was coming back, and their stuff was coming back. And so there was so much stuff in the room, wasn't there?
I remember the first time they came to our house, our son had had an accident on the journey, and I remember him walking, and you could obviously see he had an accident. And my first thing was, oh my God, we've got no clothes. Oh no, we have got clothes. We've got his clothes. And that was the weirdest thing. The first time putting children's clothes into our washing machine, then hanging them up to dry, and thinking, oh God, I've shrunk my shorts, but actually then realize, oh no, they're not. They're my kids' shorts, because you've never washed children's shorts before.
And now we've been constantly washing them for 5 years.
Yeah.
The washing machine has never stopped.
But we also had, although introductions went well for us, I would have liked more time, because where introductions was going so well and all the professionals were saying this is going really well, things were brought forward. We'd only had one dysregulated moment where our son decided to throw a rock at my head, and thankfully it missed. But things will move forward a week.
But we'd also had lots of so we were talking to our social worker after every visit, weren't we? And there was one night when we stayed over. I think it was like the hottest day of the year. That you remember, in a
and we
hotel
had to
with
move.
air conditioning.
We had to move hotels.
Yes, we did, didn't we?
We did.
So we were there 2 nights. Because it was so hot. But so we was taking over that morning routine and that bedtime routine, and so it was there was a lot to get your head around. I think it's important that we talk about the fact that in the plan, you really need some time for yourself.
Yes.
Because you've got so much going on, and your emotions are all over the place, aren't they? And then in that space between when the kids are at the foster carers and then when they start visiting you, you need time to do stuff like go shopping and stuff like that.
Yeah, we had nothing in. I think, but in the time that we did the introductions, I think one day we lost about 3 or 4 pounds in one day. I know I shed a lot of weight. But yeah, introductions was interesting.
I think we'll leave it there for now.
Yep.
But then we'll talk next time about our first few days.
That is a watch.
So we'll look forward to talking to you then.
See you later.